Okay, so the Roaring Twenties really is kind of a testament to the explosion of national culture in America. But Standard 17, again, we're still in between the time in between World War I and World War II. All right, so now we're going to look at Standard 17, the causes and the consequences of the Great Depression. So what led up to it, and what did it result in after it happened? So let's move into Standard 17, Element A. Okay, let me go back one. All right, so describe the causes of the Great Depression that include overproduction, underconsumption, the stock market speculation, and the crash that leads to the Great Depression. So we'll look at those, and again, make sure you're taking your notes, and I didn't highlight anything in yellow this time. You know what the notes look like. You've seen this format all year, so you should be able to write down what you need on your vocab and your note-taking sheet, okay? All right, so the Great Depression, that's one of your vocab terms. So every economic system goes through ups and downs, so it's kind of like a cycle. As you're moving up, that's growth and expansion. When you get to the very top of the economy hits its peak, unemployment is at its lowest, production is at its highest. You know, people are spending money, businesses are making money, life is pretty darn good. It's kind of like a roller coaster. And then you start to come down and you start to see, it's called contraction or decline, and the economy starts to dip, and that's when you're headed into a recession. And if you get to that lowest point, and you won't know until after you start to see growth again what that lowest point was, but that lowest point, the trough, is your depression. Some depressions are not as extreme and severe as others. Sometimes we go into a recession and then we're able to pull ourselves out. But that's capitalism, okay? So capitalism naturally has its dips in the economic cycle. All of the events happening during the 20s made the Depression even more severe than normal. So let's look at the causes. And these 5 are the causes of the Great Depression, okay? So the Great Depression, industrial slump, 1929, and the years that follow after. So the first one is overproduction. Industries think, hey, we're making money, so we're going to keep producing more and more. We're going to increase the amount of stuff that we're selling, even though we don't know if we can sell it all. So this creates a surplus when you have an excess or more than you need of products. The second cause to the Great Depression, now be careful, there are 5 causes, so make sure that you get these. Underconsumption. Remember, consumers consuming goods. I go out and I buy stuff from the store and I use those things. That's consumption. If businesses are starting to fail and people are losing their jobs, or we see that people are losing their jobs, we tend to save our money and not spend as much. So underconsumption is when consumers stop spending and quit buying stuff. We saw this when COVID hit back in, last year in March. A lot of people started saving their money. They weren't spending as much. I'm not talking about the run at the stores for bleach and toilet paper and paper towels and stuff. I'm talking about people that go out and spend a lot of money on a lot of things right away. Then the third cause to the Great Depression is speculation. Investors thought, hey, if I invest all this money, I can get rich real quick by the stock market. Well, when investments didn't pan out and they weren't earning money, they had to sell off their stock. Okay, this eventually is going to lead to the stock market crash in October of 1929, or Black Tuesday. We'll get to that, so don't worry about that term. We'll come back to it. Okay, the fourth cause, the disparity in wealth. Capitalism naturally has a disparity in wealth distribution. You have your very wealthy, you have your very poor, you have a lot of people in between. There's not an equal distribution of wealth, so not everybody has the same amount of everything. Okay, prospered in the 20s. Farmers lost harvest, they lost income, they lost their farms. Coal mining was replaced by other sources of energy like oil, and workers' wages didn't keep up with the cost of living. So the cost of living went up, but the wages didn't go up. Think about gas prices going up and the cost of goods at the grocery store going up, but you never make more money. You can't buy as much as you used to. Okay, and then the fifth cause to the Great Depression, the banking panic. As unemployment increased, People are starting to panic, so they run to the bank, they pull their money out of their savings. Well, banks have already loaned a lot of that money out to people. So they can't meet the depositor's need to pull their money out because they don't have all that money. You don't put your money in the bank and it just sits there forever waiting for you to pull it out. The bank loans that money. They put it places. They invest it places. So if every member of a bank rushed to the bank to pull their money out, not everybody's going to get it in cash. Okay? And so banks try to start, calling in loans and things like that. And people couldn't pay their loans if they'd lost their job. So banks couldn't give it. This is called the run on the banks. Well, eventually the nation is going to shut down the banks. So we're going to get to that. So just keep that in mind. All right. All right. So market crash. That's kind of a biggie. So we want to make sure that we touch on that one for sure. The stock market, the ride. There's a lot of ups and downs. If you ever invest in stocks or you know what it's like, if you watch your stocks every single day, you're going to get antsy. Oh, it lost. Oh, it made, it earned money. It grew today. Oh, it lost tomorrow. It's going to drive you crazy. You can't check your stocks every day. You got to wait it out. It's a long-term investment. But investors poured their money into the stock market thinking, hey, I'm going to make huge profits. So this is speculation, what you think is going to happen. And then it doesn't. So if you look at that, you're going along the roller coaster and you get up here and, oh, where's the rest of the roller coaster? So the investors thought they were going to make all this money. They speculated it. Oh, but they were wrong. Investors had to sell off large numbers of stock, which is going to lead to that crash. They lost big time, which is known as Black Tuesday, when they sold everything off. And if you sell your stocks off for less than what you paid for them, you're losing a lot of money too. And due to people losing jobs, low wages, they pulled their money from the banks, and this is called a run on the banks. Okay. And when banks loan out money with your deposits, they can't honor every depositor who pulls their money out. Eventually they're going to shut the doors and they're not going to let you in. Okay. This is probably one of the most famous pictures ever taken. It was taken during the Great Depression. It's called Migrant Mother. And let's just take a second, look at it. What kind of emotions come from that picture? What do you feel? Do you feel anything for her? Look at her kids. Okay, this was the face of the Great Depression. This is the emotion that it brought to people.